Good morning. Welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 6th day of March, 2024. Welcome to our show today. I'm going to get right at it here because we're going to move right into Liberty Essentials with Bill Mohr and Ralph the IT guys joining us, and so is Karen the Riveter. How you doing, Bill?
Good. How about yourself?
Doing great. Hey, I want to show you something here. So just so everybody out there knows, Bill's the chairman of the U.S. Taxpayers Party. I'm the vice chair, and we are which is the Constitution Party in the state of Michigan. And we're going to talk about something really interesting. I think it's all interesting today. The ridiculousness, the moronicness of the two-party system, the sheepism, and the lack of people coming to terms with the reality of what we have going on out there. The fact that it's not the Democrats that have been subverting President Trump. It's not the Republicans that have been subverting President Trump. It's all of them. And if anybody can't think this thing through, I can't help you at this point in time. But quite honestly, when we say we're fighting for President Trump, the rightful president of the United States, this is about the American process. This is about the fact that they stole the last two elections, and we have such overwhelming proof. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So when we are defending President Trump, we are defending the process of being an American, whether you like him or not. I don't care at this point in time. It's immaterial to the discussion. The central core of the discussion is that we have a Congress and a legislature who stand for nothing. They were the ones that certified this election by abdicating their responsibility and or abandoning their oaths of office. And it's an attack on you, on me, on our future, on our children, and on America itself. And so we're gonna go there to this morning. So what say you, Bill? We've had some interesting discussions because these people can't manage money for crap. So how is it that we keep voting them back in?
So I'm not a real in the light kind of guy. I work a lot behind the scenes more than anything. I've never really been the type to volunteer into a camera or audio position, but here I am. We fill whatever roles are needed, right?
Same with me. I never wanted to be in front of the camera either, and it's like, well, I guess we're doing this.
So you just touched on something. You said we keep voting these people in, and I think by now everybody should understand that the people that are in place, at least those that subvert the Constitution and subvert the people's rights, are definitely not voted in by the people, including all those in Michigan here as well, our governor, attorney general, and all that. The majority of people that I talk to and meet along the way, they have never voted for any of those, right? It's a very select few, and it's well under the numbers of any proper election security for that office. So what we actually have, and we talked about it on the show before, and I know you've been out there talking about it a lot, and many others who are involved, these people are put in place by the powers that be, the same powers that we tolerate. And the reason being is because we haven't addressed the issue. There's so many hundreds of thousands of people talking about it, and yet we continue to allow that little minority group who usurp their authority. We continue to allow them to do that every election cycle. At this point, if we think that we're going to election our way out of something, it ain't going to happen. We still need proper people that can bring good governance, and that bringing justice to all the crimes that we've seen over the last several years and decades. We still need that, and we still ought to exercise our duty to vote. However, don't expect any change because we haven't addressed the issue yet. So I think we talked about this last week as well, or the week before, is that the U.S. Taxpayers Party just put out a resolution to all the election officials and heads, basically calling or demanding the removal of all voting machines and going back to a secure way of counting ballots, whether that be hand count or or whatever somebody can come up. I don't care if you're putting proper weighted marbles in a jar with somebody's name attached to it. All right. Anything is better than what we have because we continue to get the same results by using the same processes. So this resolution demands the removal of these machines. And I've actually brought that to my township as well and laid it out in front of them and said, hey, you guys know this. At least I know 2 of them know this on my board. It says, you guys know this and refuse to address it. And it's about time that you guys do something about it. And the response you're always going to get is we're dictated by the county. All right. And I don't honestly understand how all that works, or I don't know how it works. I understand the process they're using, but I don't know all of the facets to that. What I do know is that I elected these people to do a job, and whether or not some other elected servant is trying to dictate them some unlawful measures or unlawful processes, I elected them to do their job, and they are not doing it, right? If anybody, employer-employee situation, if you're employed by an individual, you serve them while you're on the job, right? They bring down dictates or demands that you're supposed to meet. Now, if they bring you something, for instance, I had this a few years ago. I was working for a guy, and he had asked me to go in and do some renovating processes. And one of the demands that he wanted met was he wanted this old, and you'll love this, Donna, this old 68-inch clawfoot tub with silver feet. Right, that was already set up in the bathroom we were supposed to remodel, and he says, we're going to remodel all this, so pull the tub out and bring it to my office, and I'll give you another clawfoot tub to put in its place. That's theft, right? This guy was using his process to steal something from his client. All right, so that was a straight.
I have seen that happen over and over again. I used to have a management company that I thought I'd try out because I was managing them myself, and they literally went and took all the fixtures out of a property. They took it, they stripped it, and then they basically committed fraud by double dipping, as well as buying things and then charging us for it and then selling them. Took me a little while to figure out what they were doing, to the tune of about $160,000.
Yeah. So that's straight theft. And even though I was working under contract for the guy, I refused to do it. Why? Because it was unlawful and immoral. All right. The same thing happens with our elected servants. When we elect them to do their job, we are now their employers. And when they are dictated by anybody else to do something that violates the law, they are to stand. I don't care if it's the dog catcher. All right. Right. I don't care who it is. If you're elected, you have a duty. And no matter who tells you otherwise, you are to follow the law and the provisions and the authority and duties put in place by we the people. And if you don't, you should be held accountable. And that's the part that's missing. We don't have enough people who are willing to hold them accountable, right? What is, oh man, where is it? I want to say it was Malachi. Oh, okay. I don't know. Anyway, there are three things that are required of us as individuals, by our Lord, right? And that is to do justice or seek justice, to love mercy, and walk humbly, right? Now, the justice part we're leaving out. That is what secures our liberties, written right above the Supreme Court. We've said it on this show. Mercy belongs to those who realize their wrongs and admit their wrong and turn away from it. Then we can use mercy to keep them in place, to train them, to help educate them so they can be better, not only as an individual, but as a governing servant into proper governance or good governance. And then walk humbly. None of us are above each other. right? We're all working on the same front here. We're all on the same battle lines, and we all should be working together. Those people that hold themselves to I would say to a higher standard, but they actually hold themselves to a lower standard because they believe they have some authority over another human being that has never been in history's existence, right? We're all equal. Our Declaration of Independence states that very clearly. And we all should be making the same efforts on the same fronts to accomplish the things necessary for good governance. So, all that being said, Donna, you ran for governor, and we just talked about this the other day. One thing that a lot of people don't understand, in our Constitution in Michigan, I would ask for a show of hands, but there's only 4 hands here on video total. But those listening, you can hold your hands up in solidarity, right? Article 5, Section 10 of our Michigan Constitution.
Hand up there.
There you go.
Now Karen's got a hand.
Article 5, Section 10 of our state constitution gives the governor's office the authority to remove or suspend for gross negligence of duty or for corrupt conduct in office or for any other malfeasance or malfeasance therein, any elective or appointive state officer, except legislative or judicial.
And you know what? And the thing of it is John and I were talking about this yesterday. It's like people are so into these ridiculous clubs and special interests to see what can I get out of this? How much approval can I get? How many people are going to think I'm a good person instead of doing what it needs to be done, regardless what anybody thinks? That governor's office was the quick way to fix everything in this state. And I was like, if I had gotten in, start timing me. Within 2 weeks, it would have been done. It's like, and watch the clock because things were going to happen real fast because it's going to take an outsider to do this. You cannot do it from the inside because they're all protecting each other because they got something on each other. And that the quickest path in this state, which is why I ran for governor, was the governor's office. It is the only one that can fix it fast. Now, the other way to do it would be to go to the legislature and have the legislature do it. But it would take the whole state to do that. And we have such an apathetic state of mind in this entire country that to get 5 people together to agree on what kind of Oreos to bring to a meeting or whatever it may be, you've really done something. And then going back to these elite, I'm going to go back to something you said about these elite people in the political process. I want everybody to put this in perspective here. Both of those meetings that the Republicans made between the sham fight between Karamo and Hoekstra, which both of them should have been removed, but I got blamed for removing Karamo because I published everything and put it out there. She was wrong and needed to be removed. I'm sorry. I would never have somebody working for me in any capacity that if I found out what they were doing and they were doing exactly what they did having to do with the building, which is what we're going to talk about next, and or some of the other nonsense going on, and I published it. I published all of it. She needed to be removed. So what happens? The political operatives within the Republican Party put up Mr. Patriot Act Pete Hoekstra, who signed it twice. Not once, but twice, who sat dead center with the Bushes, who is a global crime syndicate member right there. They were funding both sides of World War II by sitting right offshore with Standard Oil. They were running drugs on our military planes into Afghanistan. This is part of the global crime syndicate. But by golly, if we're Republicans, we can't speak anything wrong about somebody in the party because that would be a wrong thing to do instead of doing what those clerks should have done. And that's out in the whole thing, right from the bottom to the top of what they did during the elections. That's what needed to be happening. And so it's just like, I'll go back to that. The only words I want to hear out of Pete Hoekstra's mouth is, I broke the law and this is what I'm going to do to right it. The only words I want to hear out of anybody's mouth standing with Pete Hoekstra is, well, yes, in fact, we did vote in somebody who broke the law. which is what did they do, Bill? What did they do?
And not only broke the law, but he committed treason against the American people.
He sure did. And now all of these people in the party, they're like, oh, we've got to come together. We need unity. Well, isn't that what happened with Hitler? Don't question the party. Got to keep going, even though we voted a criminal in, somebody who should have been criminally prosecuted. And right now, every single one of these people who refuse to do the right thing, from the townships all the way up to Whitmer, all of them need to be removed. Their citizenship stripped. They broke the law, and I don't care who told them to break the law. They broke the law, and they're guilty.
Yep, absolutely.
Quick Donna rant and synopsis of what's going on, but it's true, and I'm sorry if I'm the only one saying it. Well, you'll say it. You and I are the ones that'll say it. Probably Ralph would say it, probably Karen would say it too. But all of them that broke the law need to be removed, stripped of their citizenship, and I mean stripped of it. All the way down. The ones that violated the border, and all of them in the parties, the political parties, the people that stand with voting in somebody like this as criminal. And I'll go back to this. You realize that there were about 100 people in both of these meetings in this sham Karamo hoekstra fight to keep people busy and refuse to let them do anything that was going to actually change the nation. They only had about 100 people in each one of those meetings that installed their chair both times, installed a criminal the second time with Patriot Act, Mr. Pete Hoekstra. And then after that, they're the ones that are determining anyone who claims to be Republican in this state has the right to vote for.
So, yeah, and a lot of that,
because they'll defund it through the party. The party will subvert anyone that comes in from the outside. I watched it. I saw it. I was a victim of it.
Yep. And regarding Pete Hoekstra, since we're on that topic, I mean, it was just laid out. We all know what he did, right? In 2001, we all saw it. We all knew it. And regarding the Patriot Act, if you haven't read it, read it. Right? It's a lot.
To read it. I mean, if you got time to read it, because they didn't read it, they just signed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Not one person in Congress read that bill. All right, not one. I guarantee it before they signed it. There's no way they had the time, and they use the excuse that we have to do things quickly to handle situations, and they will allow for some unlawful process or unlawful pretended legislation to be able to fix a crisis, right? Never let a good crisis go to waste, they said.
Crisis in the first place.
That's right. That's right. And the reason being is because they don't think they have a manual. They're elected to office, and they don't believe that they have a manual on how to do their job, that they're all kind of learning and educating as they go, all being learned from the same criminals who are currently there when they get elected. I'm holding on to their manual, right? This is as simple as that. You can read this book in 10 minutes, guys. Michigan legislature, I'm holding to their manual right there. It's very simple. You have delegated authority to do certain things that we demand you accomplish, and anything outside of that, you don't have a right to touch. That is an elected servant's duty right there. Plain and simple. Now, when they start violating the people's rights, like the Patriot Act, for one, I was young. I remember that, though. When they start violating people's rights, that's when the people need to rise up and say, no, you're not having this. You're not going to accomplish, or you're not going to make this happen. Because all the Patriot Act did by Mr. Pete Hoekstra and Bush and everybody else in Congress, all that did was reclassify 70 some definitions of what a terrorist is. And almost every single one of those applies to the American people.
Yep.
Now, we know the definition of terrorism set up in the early foundation of the nation in the early 1800s. Webster says terrorism is government by intimidation. It has nothing to do with somebody coming in and trying to subvert government. It is government by intimidation. The same thing our forefathers fought against the tyrant across the pond over there, the king, right? He wouldn't be ruled by God. He wouldn't follow his laws. And so they declared, we're not having any more of it here. And they washed their hands of that madness and by God's grace developed this nation that we have today. And what are the American people doing? We're standing down and allowing these people to just take it over, to subvert it. And it all starts in your local levels and even more so in party politics. Because just as we were talking about, these people allowed a treasonous individual to come in and be the head of their political party.
They voted him in. They didn't allow it. They facilitated it.
Yep. Well,
They
that's the same
chose it.
thing. That's the same thing after World War II, when a lot of the dissidents' children were praising Adolf Hitler for what he had done. And all he did was go in and kill their families beforehand. But through propaganda and the drive of the narrative that we see through all of the mainstream media, that's all owned and operated by the CIA, right? And all these 6 families out there, and we can do shows and shows upon this, but it's all controlled narrative. And it's because of that, our next generation is believing that the things we're fighting against are truth. Because the American people have not stood up and put a stop to it completely. Now, we all know that God doesn't need a majority to prevail. And Samuel Adams even said that that what's needed is a minority willing to set brush fires of freedom in the minds of men, right? That's the sharing of information. That's calling out the wickedness. That's reproving the darkness. That's helping redeem the time. Everything that that people that claim they're Christians, we should be doing. That is one of our duties in the scriptures, to get out there and do this. We've never been called to obey tyrants. That's nowhere in there. We have no king but King Jesus, our founding fathers said. We are the rightful heirs of this nation. This is our inheritance. And what are we doing with it? That's the question each individual has to ask themselves. So we drop all the way back into these political party schemes. And yeah, I say schemes. I'm a chairman of a political party. It's a scheme, all right? It was set up that way and designed that way by statutory legislation. So even John Quincy Adams, what was he, the 7th or 8th president of the United States? Maybe the 6th. I don't know anymore. I didn't remember that in school. But even he said even he said that political parties are a good thing. And that's because they allow for discussion. They allow for the opening up of debates on issues. It's like the Americans' workhouse before elections, to get to know people, to understand who the candidates are that are helped put up by the parties, right? It's supposed to be individual groups helping to promote good governance through candidates, right? But that's where it stops. Political parties should have no business in law to be able to regulate the affairs of the elections that way. Okay.
Well, look at what happened with the vice president and president, and how we choose that, how far away from the Constitution that is. We're supposed to take the top 2 candidates, whoever's on the ballot, not an R or a D or a whatever it is, and they were supposed to be, the top candidate was president. The second most votes is vice president. It wasn't, you don't pick your vice president. The people pick your vice president, and let the votes fall where they may. And so you could have a Republican and a Democrat in office. That's allowable. That was the way it was supposed to be. And now, what is it? No, it's completely controlled entirely.
Yep. Now, in my opinion, when it comes to that, Donna, I take a pretty hard stand that I've really never heard many people talk of, is that I don't believe we should even be voting for presidents or vice presidents, right? I don't believe we should be voting for the Congressional Senate.
Shouldn't be voting for the Senate for sure.
Because the Senate is supposed to represent the states, not the people. We should have our representatives elected by the people for sure. And that well more than what we have currently. They've narrowed that operation down. And now they're representing more people than they can even handle, right? We need to get those numbers back down and actually get our several hundred representatives in Congress like it's supposed to be. But yeah, the state or the Senate represents the state. That should be elected by the legislature of the state, right?
Correct. And they completely blew that one out of the water, so they can cheat at it at the election box, because that you can't keep control of it when things are so big, and that's how they cheat. It's got to be decentralized. And
even locally, I don't believe we should be voting for state senates either. I believe that the people, if we would put up proper candidates in our representative seats, they can do their job and they can elect representatives for the state and make up the Senate that way, right? Because they're held accountable to the state. Our representatives.
If we cut the whole thing back, that would be like about 90% of it gone. So what they've done is, instead of representing the people, they're representing big money interests, and they are a part of the machine that's out there to basically steal from the American people rather than represent. They don't even have a purpose at this point in time for us.
Yep. And I'm glad you brought that up. And where does all that stem from? We can drive it right back to the political party that they came from, right?
Yep.
So we look at these people who were put up by the Democrat Party, right? And we look at the people that were put up by the Republican Party, because that's what we have in office, right? And you said it on this show numerous times, they all come from the same party. And as much as people haven't grasped that idea, I don't understand that at all.
You know what it is? I can tell you why it is. Because the political operatives within the parties, and I'm going to tell you right now, I believe that the majority of them are. I really do. And I can give you a couple of examples that have to make you take a pause even and ask. But the problem is that they're friendly. They talk to people. They tell people, and that person, oh, they're a really nice person. They treated me well. They made me feel good. Instead of, well, so do drugs for an addict. They make you feel good, so that's where you go. That's not how you make a logical, smart, and informed decision. It's not how they make you feel. It's, are they qualified for the job? Do they know the job? Can they get in there and defend against all threats, domestic and foreign and domestic? Or do you just want a babysitter to sit there and talk to, be your therapist when you're annoyed with things? Or do you want somebody that's a workhorse that's going to get in there and get her done? That's the problem. Is people?
It's the tickling of the ears.
Yeah, it is. It's an emotional response to hearing what you want to hear, and they're great. So they'll spout out anything they think you want to hear. They'll say it. But I'm going to tell you what, the things that need to be said, they aren't going to tell you the truth on anything. And I've said this for a while. If you want this thing reversed quickly, we need everybody to stop playing games and just tell the truth about what's going on. We're broke. We're completely broke. This system is going to crash. There's no two ways about it. And what happens when it does? What you got then? Where are you going to go? You better not have a plan, because it's going to happen.
Yep. The American people right now, we are so busy, even working. You can put work up as an idol. We spend 8, 10, 12 hours a day chasing a dollar that is worthless, instead of spending a little bit more time maybe in our families, in our house, teaching our kids, educating them, or getting out there and speaking. I mean, our time is valuable, right? Life is but a little vapor.
Learn a trade, learn something you can do, because if this thing melts down, you better know a farmer or somebody knows how to do something to feed you and your families. And this is what they've warred against too. And every one of these people that are sitting in the seats, they just want to build and develop and build and develop. And all of a sudden, guess what? Farmland's going away. They've taken away your food sovereignty. They take away your food and your water, which is exactly what they've done. You are absolutely at their mercy.
Yep, absolutely. Our founding fathers understood that. That's why they didn't create a beast system. They allowed each individual to govern themselves and leave the bigger issues of government, thus creating, laws to prosecute the wicked. They left that up to their representatives so that they could govern themselves and their households and their communities. But so, I mean, all of it, all of it. How much can we talk about this?
We can talk about it till the cows come home, until people get what the heck's going on, because they're not getting it, that they're being led by wolves in sheep's clothing. Now, I'm going to tell you what, the majority of what I saw out there was political operatives. And I'm going to tell you what, when you look at the sham arrest of Ryan Kelly, it wasn't an arrest. It was an indictment. He knew 2 days before that. And I know somebody that told me that the FBI was changing their clothes at the church across the street from him for an hour. I'm sure. I'm so sure. And who showed up at his sham election? But you know what? He's got a great smile and he's real friendly. And he talked about thorium reactors. That one of the things I was at as a way to write the and he's a nice guy. I like him personally. But thorium, we don't even have the ability to make those things, people. Not even yet. I mean, there's other things that we can do. But that was like grab a headline out of Yahoo and not know what the heck you're talking about. I mean, that's what these people do. And who was standing with him outside of the courthouse up here with his indictment? It's like the attorney that I had at the time said he couldn't even have gotten there in the amount of time that took to have the cast and crew of people that were standing there with him. So you better start questioning that, because they're all people you know and love. And so here you go. Controlled opposition, foreign and domestic. The best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. Wow. Wonder how that works. Surprise, surprise. Controlled opposition is a special technique. The czars used it to maintain their power, and so did the Chinese emperors. Totalitarian socialist regimes have used controlled opposition more effectively than anyone. In fact, George Orwell's novel 1984 is largely about a man who joins a controlled opposition movement under a totalitarian socialist regime. Welcome to the Uniparty. And I went ahead and said it. And you can keep on hating on third party split the vote candidates. You're a captured asset. Guaranteed. That's
right.
You're spitting out a headline without thinking about what you're saying. It didn't make any sense, and it still doesn't. Let's see. I've got. Chat's blowing up. Denise is talking out here. Donna, give it to them all. I'm gonna give it to them all. They're all of them guilty. All of them are guilty. I'm reading David McCullough's John Adams, almost 700 pages of what we are to be doing. We are so far from the creation of. Hang on a minute. Our country, it's ridiculous. Trump put in good old Pete Hoekstra. I'm so sick of it all that I'm nearly not voting. Bill is totally correct. Money, power, and greed has stolen our wealth. Well, you still got to vote. We can overwhelm them. Just because they're screwing up doesn't mean we abdicate our responsibility either.
Yeah, and hey, there's something about voting. There are. It was said that there are 3 boxes that the American people control. Right. One is the ballot box. That is one of our duties, to go out and vote, right? As much as we know a lot of it is nonsense, at least we can control the local elections. Okay. You might not even be able to get to the county level, but you can check your townships and city wards.
As long as there's machines, we don't even know if we control the local level. But even if they get in office, the great thing is let them vote themselves in office and go in there and tell them what's going to be done, and then let them face personal legal. And I'm going to say legal. I know a lot of people don't like that term, but you got to get over yourselves on the terms, because there are common terms that common people speak. And there's not enough people that are educated on the rightful terms of the United States and go back to, the Black's Law Dictionary. Okay, I get it. But we're talking to people out there that may not understand what we do, and just correcting them and being a smart aleck about it isn't helpful at this point in time. And so we don't need to make any more enemies. We need to make friends. And so, but we have to go in there, show up with a law in our hand, because we know what it is, and tell them what their only recourse is as an employee. So that's what John and I were talking about yesterday, is going in there and writing things, because we can talk about it. I know we've got the resolution for the party that we put out there for removing the machines. That's great. But what we need to do is the next step, which is what we're going to be doing next, I believe Tuesday, is putting together with the law an outline that somebody can take into their township and go, we are not going to accept the machines. Get a bunch of your friends and go into your townships, your precincts, to the county, and tell them the laws they broke. They broke 4 of them in Byron Township, the election laws, because I saw it. And they destroyed evidence under the direction of Jonathan Brader because they got a letter that told them. No, they're guilty. They just admitted to guilt of this. And I hope they send somebody here to go after me. I love fighting. There's some people that can fight. I love a good fight. It's like, let's drag this out in the light and just throw it out there and deal with this instead of hiding all of it, because the clerks are guilty. That's what they did in Nazi Germany. It was the clerks that destroyed it and put the Nazis in place. And we got the same dynamic now.
Yeah. And after the voting box, right? I want to finish this point out. After the voting box, what are the other 2 that we control? The other being the jury box, right? A lot of people don't understand. And I've talked to, I think, 2 people this last week who were talking about getting a summons to serve on a jury and how much they're going to hate it. And they got to take time off work. And I'm like, that is one of the most, the best things that I look forward to is when they send me a jury summons, and they've only sent me one and they refuse to call me up for it. But I wish I could serve on juries, a couple times a month. I would love it. I don't care how much time I have to take off work. Maybe I can pardon one of the innocent people that they're going after. That's my mindset. And what people don't understand is not only can the jury determine the case facts, right, and issue guilty or innocent verdicts. It's not the judge that issues that. Let's get that right. It's the jury. But they can also judge the law. They can determine whether a law is unjust or unlawful, right? And when a jury shoots down a law, they can never put that law back in place. How many people understand that? That is a huge asset to the American people. And that's one of our rights that wasn't granted to us anywhere. And the third, God forbid, is a cartridge box, right? That's what our founding fathers had to take it to, because their voice wasn't being heard in their parliament. It wasn't being heard by the king. It was continually things were brought against them, and more hardships were brought against them every time they try to, extend an olive branch to the king. So the very next step is they take it to law, right? Through their Congress, they tried to issue this all the way through Parliament. They tried to bring proper resolve. They tried to bring proper justice, and it was being unheard all the way through there. What was their third step? Their cartridge box. And God forbid we have to take it to that level in America. But I can't see the first 2 being done. How many people, like you just mentioned, how many people do we talk to who said, I'm not voting anymore. It's a waste of time. It's not going to accomplish anything. Well, are you willing to serve in a jury? If we can bring you up to a jury level, are you willing to serve and actually learn the law and understand the case? If you're not willing to do that,
step in with a minor party who is set to stop political parties. And honestly, that's what it is. Stop their involvement, their usurpation of what their intended role was. Are you ready to step up with that? If you are, go to ustpm.org and come and talk to us. We're all so ornery about this, but we're not going to sit there and lay down like a bunch of cowards. We're willing to fight this thing out.
And if you're not willing to take up the first 2 steps, you can rest assured that at least I, for one, and the people I know, cannot trust those type of people if it ever came down to taking up a third step, right? If it ever came down to that, we're not going back and trying to get the people who just refuse to address these issues in person and refuse to, they just want to sit there and complain. You're not the people that I want to talk about. I I want people of action. We have to get involved and get these things done. So we're gonna put a bunch of material together. And we're going to get it out there. And you can already go, if you go to our website and click on, I think up at the top, it says news, or one of the drop boxes, I think it says news on it. You can go in there and you can see what we've been said, and you can see some of the articles we posted and resolutions we've brought to the government. And take them, use whatever you got, right? Give proper credit where credit's due, but use them. Make a difference in your local communities.
Money on this. Unlike everybody else out there, none of us are making money. This is all volunteer. I don't, people, we're not like getting paid to do this.
Oh yeah. There's like no money involved here.
There's
Number one.
money involved. That was the one thing. I had one candidate call me last night, and his bragging right to me was, I can raise lots of money. And I'm like, we don't really want lots of money involved in this. We want people that want to stand up for this nation. Because the minute you put money in, I'm going to tell you what, the vultures and the political people are going to try to get in and turn this into another money Ponzi scheme that is basically going to destroy what's there. And if they do that, guess what? Bill and myself and everybody else will absolutely have a reaction to it. If somebody comes in for money and wants to do things, that was the one selling point the guy said last night. I didn't tell you that, about how much money he could raise, and bragging about the money and this, that, and the other thing. And knowing that it's not likely that he's going to win. I mean, that's what he said. And I'm like, well, that's great. I don't want the money involved in this. I want people that will step up and say, you know what? I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to go to my township and put them in place, because you have to do it. Nobody else can do it. Nobody else can go into your township and fix this for you. You have to do it yourself. And we can help put things together and stand together and train people and such. But this is one of those things that we need to do on a local basis. And once you start throwing all the machines out, you have completely thrown the machines across the state. We wouldn't even have to do the whole thing. A third party, a minor party, is the disruptor. And it's like, can you imagine if you threw them out in even a tenth of the precincts in the state of Michigan, throw the machines out, you seriously throttle their ability to cheat, because the cheating in the remaining ones would have to be so egregious that it would be in your face all over the place.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I'm not advocating for party votes. You know me, Donna. I mean, that straight party ticket, that, guess who put in place the other two parties, right?
Right.
We used to not have that, but that came in just not that terrible long ago. That straight party ticket was a means to squelch the voice of any of their opposition. Now we look at it and we can say, you look at the Democrat political party here in the state of Michigan, and then you combine what Lenin had said, that if we want to control the opposition, the best way is to lead it ourselves. And you look at that, and now you have the Republican Party, right?
Right.
And if you travel back to the roots of the Republican Party, you can see they were branched off for a specific purpose. They didn't just start out as a good governance party, okay? No matter how many people think that Lincoln was this perfect Christian president, you need to get back into history a little bit and understand some of what he did.
Problems there, a lot of problems. But, first attorney, I believe, that took office and destroyed the titles of nobility, prohibition. So that was the controlled opposition at the time, right? Well, now they've been able to drag that so far that their straight party ticket voting, right, is their means of controlling all opposition, right? Yeah, they don't have to lead. What happens is, like, Whitmer told all the Democrats to vote for the weakest Republican candidate in the 2022 election. They didn't even, so they just jumped over to the Republican and installed the worst candidate possible. Well, none of them were any good, but it was like, but the weakest one that couldn't even win against Whitmer. I mean, they could cheat their way through that. And she was the one that directed them.
Yep, the primary's got to go. I don't care if you don't want to vote in a primary. Yeah. I'm okay with that, because I'll tell you, I don't vote in a primary because the people in the U.S. Taxpayers Party do not go through primaries, right? They are elected
primary.
by
I'm not a Republican or Democrat.
Yep. The U.S. Taxpayers Party candidates are elected by the people of the party. You get involved in the party, you maintain control over that. I don't want to be part of a primary where everybody out there is cross-voting and electing, like you just mentioned with the past governor election, electing or putting up a worse candidate on the other party so that you can garnish more votes for yours. And that's the mindset, and I don't want any part of it. I've never had it, and I'm not going to be part of it. Right. The thing about the money you just brought up, you are absolutely correct. Nobody in the U.S. Taxpayers Party takes a dime for any of this. No. Right. We spend out of our own pockets, probably, even one of the most simple offices, which is, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say my wife, but she does not have a simple office. All right. She's double dipping into two extremely difficult positions. Praise God for her. But even she,
the hardest of all of it.
Yeah. When you look at it, we spend thousands out of our own time, our own pockets, to accomplish things like this. And even right now, you can see I'm sitting in my work truck, right? As much as I like this truck, I don't like sitting here. The sun's like beating down on me right now. But I'm sitting at a job site at work. So to do this, to be able to get out there and speak and talk about these things, I've got to take time off work to come sit in my truck, and I don't make any money that way. Right. That's the kind of stuff that just has to be done sometimes to accomplish what so many people are desiring. And that is the return of constitutional government. Right. This is a simple form. And I encourage, if anybody's listening on here and has questions or wants to debate some of this, contact Donna. You can get right a hold of her here, or you can get a hold of her on her website, or she's put her phone number out there. Call her and say, hey, I want on your show because this guy Bill is saying weird stuff and none of it's right. And just get on here. I'd love to talk to you in person. That's a lot more fun than just chatting and being a little social justice warrior on media.
Yeah, I put my phone number out there for everybody. It's like if somebody wants to know it, it's 616-430-4410. Call away. I don't really care. And I will talk. But if you go on my Telegram channel, I respond. I'm the only one on there that responds and posts. So there's a few scammers that come on, but we make ourselves available. What really surprised me with the last meeting we had at Center Shot there? What really surprised me on that was because we provided a meal. We never asked for money. Now, it would be nice if somebody decided to foot some of the bill, but like I made all the food and people were really surprised. They're like, you cooked all this? I'm like, yeah, I could cook for hundreds of people. I know how to do that. I'm a farm girl. And, not only cook it, but provided it. We paid for it. You paid for some of the stuff that was donated there, some very expensive stuff that was donated there to try to make it fun for people. And, which is amazing. I mean, this is just individuals that are willing to invest in this nation out of what we do and what we make with our own money. We didn't get donations for this. We didn't get somebody that came up as a big donor. This was out of our own pockets, trying to pull people together, our time. And there were other people there that did things too. It wasn't just you and I. I'm just highlighting it because the two of us are here. But we didn't sit there and beg for donations. And what was really amazing was how many people that were like, wow, this is really nice. Was like, nobody was there beating them up. You got to give us more money so we can have another fundraiser to make more money so we can have another fundraiser to make more money. That's your Republican Party right there. Bunch of beggars.
Yeah, and you look at it, and money really is the drive. You can see. In fact, I just was at one of my local places there where the guys all used to meet up and do the same thing, talk about issues and find resolve. And who happens to show up but the previous Kent County Chairman Tim Wallinga, right? I'm sitting there eating, and I don't think he has any idea who I am. We've met several times in the past, but apparently I don't leave a large enough impression for people to remember me.
We only hang out with people within the party. They wouldn't want to talk to us little people out there who aren't insignificant.
Yeah, so I was listening to the conversation a little bit because at first when I met Tim Wallinga, he seemed like a decent guy that was willing to actually, put action to words. And then when he took the chairmanship, I realized it was pretty much the same actions as the previous chair before him, and that the status quo was just being maintained. But he did say some interesting things regarding money in politics. Now we all know that. Yeah, we all know that the county GOPs out here, they don't own anything, right? They don't own their buildings. They lease or rent their buildings. A lot of the equipment is all done under contract, mostly through either a friend or a buddy within the party, so that everybody's making money. But one of the things that that was brought up is that the state was you got to get this. The state on their campaign finance report was claiming, what do they call that?
Depreciation, right? Depreciation of value on a property. And they don't own the property. The property is actually in a trust fund through several individuals as beneficiaries. But the Michigan GOP is claiming depreciation on that. Now that is a huge violation of the Michigan campaign finance law. Go to jail moment.
Yeah, that is huge. But what do we expect when we put up treasonous and felonious people into these positions? Everybody that's listening in the GOP, I mean, you gotta put a check on this. You got to keep your checks and balances in your own party, because if you can't do it there, they're not going to do it when they get elected, right? Yep. And even the Kent GOP, Tim Wallinga had actually resigned, he said, for the same type of reasons, right? Within the Kent GOP, they were trying to pull the same garbage, and he resigned because of that. Now, in my opinion, if he was elected by the people, he should have actually done his duty, and he should have gone after those who were committing these criminal acts. But he didn't, because he said he didn't have any money to do it within the party. So the party's just, it's a massive fund transfer, right? Not fund transfer.
Yep. It's all it is.
And U.S. Taxpayers Party, we see this. We see this standing out here, and we've been raising a flag since 1992 in the state of Michigan, right? Back when Joe Sanger, rest in peace, and the founders of our party came out here and garnished the proper signatures and such to get this party on the ballot then. And we've maintained that, and we've maintained that same stand. And it's still amazing that people, the majority of people I talk to don't even have any idea that the U.S. Taxpayers Party or even the Constitution Party exists. And the one thing I ask first is, have you ever voted? And normally the answer is yes. And I was like, have you ever read your ballot or understood your candidates? And normally the answer again is yes. And then I say, well, who's the third party on your ballot? And they don't know. And I'll tell you, it's the U.S. Taxpayers Party, right? There's the Libertarians and Greens on there as well, both trying to subvert lawful authority and subvert the Constitution, along with the first two parties you see on your ballot. They've proven that action all the way through their history.
Well, the political operatives tried to get into the U.S. Taxpayers Party, and I saw it and you saw it, and we absolutely, I'm going to tell you right now, the Constitution Party, and I'm going to give credit to you and Jerry, stepped in and just cleaned it all out. Because no matter where you are, they're going to try to usurp it, and you're going to have to stay watchful and vigilant, because these people are going to come into any type of an organization you are. Evil does not stop. And if you don't do your job and rout them out, which happened in the U.S. Taxpayers Party, and one of these days I'm going to throw out exactly what happened when I've got time to talk about it. But you know what? If you are not in it, like Tim and everybody else, and clean that party out and go from top to bottom, it's just like within the townships, the counties, and the state, the legislature, all of them committed treason. All of them committed treason. They allowed, in the legislature, they allowed election to be certified, and they passed it to the Board of Elections, Board of Canvassers, and said, well, they just passed it on and let them certify it. It's their fault. It's your representative's fault. They were the ones that allowed this. You can point to Whitmer, you can throw your temper tantrums, you can sob, whine, and whatever. That's a whole nother issue with all the three-letter agencies. That election falls squarely on the legislature for being certified in 2020 and 2022. And they knew that it was cheated. Don't nobody tell me that they didn't know that. They knew it because they're part of it.
It's amazing how many people point to the governor's office as Gretchen Whitmer, or maybe even the attorney general if they get so bold, and put all the blame on those offices, right? And if you read through your Constitution, understand what their authority is, and understand that they do not have a whole lot of control over what happens on your day-to-day lives. Most of their authority is administrative stuff. And they are to govern within their delegated authority. The majority of the blame should lie on the people out of your local areas called your representatives. That's where we need to hold the account, and that includes our township offices like we talked about last week.
Check this out. White House goes to court. Ralph just sent this to me a little bit ago. Not Congress to renew warrantless spy powers. And so they don't have the ability to do that. That is up to Congress. And so the executive branch is the one that's allowing all these three-letter agencies. The executive branch is the one that is just stepping in, and the legislators go, well, that's what they're doing. And then, it's like,
yeah, that's right. And it's a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment right there. Warrantless spy powers, right? Read your Fourth Amendment. To be able to secure anything from the people, to search the people or their property or their possessions, or to take anything from the people, their property or possessions, requires a warrant. Okay, just get that. That is the foundation of that, and then to get a warrant requires probable cause. Right? They like to twist that around and say, "Oh, we got probable cause under what? The Patriot Act, mind you." Probable cause because you fit under one of these terrorist definitions and you're making these acts that all kind of fall in line with it. So we've got probable cause to spy on you or to search you and try to find things that we can pin against you and make you a criminal.
Additionally, I would say that a warrant is supposed to be issued by a judge. Judges are supposed to be publicly accountable, not like a FISA court judge. The entire process of a FISA court is all secretive. That's supposed to be out in the open for all of us to be able to scrutinize. Yep,
that is absolutely correct. So one more violation. You can check it on the box that our little Congress up there is not going to take care of. That is so easy. I mean, they signed they signed their criminal, or they signed their name to their criminal conviction, right? That's all that was. And watch, nobody in the Congress is going to go after them to impeach them, remove them, and prosecute them. Not one will. Because they all want the same things, because it's only in that way that they're able to retain their power and continue their little money schemes and make millions while they sit there and fleece the American people for $10, $20, $100 at a time through their emails. I mean, how many people get those emails, right? The people we supposedly elect to Congress, they get paid to do their job, and they have the audacity to come back to the American people and say, hey, here's a problem. There's an issue. Give me money and I'll help fight it. No, I already pay you to do that job. You're not doing it. Get out.
Do you see Oregon had they just published how much money that's going into the illegals to fund their little vacation here in the United States? And it was about 10 times. It was 10 times, I believe, what their annual budget was, or more. Mm-hmm. And it was more than 10 times. And so it's like, finally somebody said, how are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for this? We don't even have that much money coming into the state. And it was like $573 million. It was crazy. It was like crazy.
Yep.
But why does reality matter?
Doesn't matter. I probably quoted the wrong number. I'll look it up and show you guys what it was, because it was kind of shocking.
Yeah, it is insane the amount of money that gets moved. And the majority of people stand back and they don't understand that these people that we elect get in there pretty much broke, right? Or they're just living their lives kind of money. And we elect them on that little measly salary, which is way too much anyway. And then they come out in 2 or 4 years as multimillionaires, right? Tens of millions. It's like they're all working the same way. And it's time, it's well beyond time we put a stop to this. And that even goes at the state level. It's like we have got to do this, people. Get involved. And by all means, if you see something, say something, as Donna says on the show. When we see criminal activity going on, it is the people, we talked about on a few shows ago, it's the people's duty to enforce the law. There is no other law enforcers in our Constitution but the people.
Yeah, and
so
if
what are we doing?
Talk about it. Give me a call. I just threw my number out there again, and I'll put you up here on exposing the criminal. If I'm the only one doing it, and I don't say me, I'd say us, because we're all kind of involved in this here. But if we're the only ones doing it here on Brandenburg News Network, call me. You got a voice here. I don't censor anyone. I'll talk about what happened to you. I think this is critical that we talk about personal stories and how these people have attacked us personally. You know.
Yep.
It's important. Ralph and Karen, what say you? Thank you for being so patient, by the way.
Good morning. No, it's always interesting to listen to what Bill has to say for a while anyway.
I'm glad somebody finds it interesting.
Well, it is kind of nice, and it's
Oh, lost Karen. Try it again, Karen. There you go. You're back.
I'm here. Much of what you say I'm familiar with, but hearing it back from you in the way that you are able to say it and express it is refreshing, because we don't hear it put into words as well as you can skillfully do that. So I thank you on behalf of all Michiganians, leaving Donna, for your study and the time that you put into being able to do all that. We are all at some stage of learning, and I'm constantly talking about that everybody is learning about self-governing, whether they realize it or not, because we're realizing what has not worked. And by doing so, we're starting to ask questions and shape what needs to work. Some of that has already been laid out for us by our founders, and we're just not following it. And some of it is just stuff that we have to learn by experience, because the world has changed significantly in some ways from when our founders were around. You know, they didn't have the internet, for example. And those kinds of things change how we can operate within a government system and a political system. But at the same time, things like the Bible don't change. You know, we need to get back to the principles that perhaps were more well-founded in our nation when it first started. You know, people were thinking about how they interacted with each other and the world around them so differently than we are now. And, you know, Donna, you've talked about how we really should get back to the concept of family and community, and being able to produce food for yourself is a really big part of it. For an example, that family unit and a community unit, small town kind of unit, made a lot of things easier for them than what we have now. And that makes self-governing even harder. So there's so many elements to it, and we don't need to spend a lot of time blaming ourselves for all of our wrongdoings, because really a lot of it is on us. What we're doing is we're just saying, hey, the buck stops here. We recognize it's going to take generations to learn how to self-govern. and to shape our communities in such a way that we can. Because like you were just saying, we can't continue the way we have been doing things and make an improvement.
The first question I think everybody should be asking right now, in light of the fact that I think we're going to see a tremendous interruption here. I think that yesterday's cyber attack was a test to see how people will react, just like the toilet paper fiasco, because the greatest threat we have is human beings being stupid and doing panic things. It's like a horse, right? The greatest threat from a horse is that they're afraid, they're scared by a chipmunk that they think is going to eat them. Okay. And being able to recognize whether something's a real threat or if it's a perceived threat, just because we're not used to it. And I do believe that that's the greatest threat we have right now. So with something looming over us that could change things as we see it, change the world that we see it, what are you going to do to prepare yourself, not just physically, but mentally, to have a complete and total change of the familiar? And going into a grief response isn't your smartest move right there, because people, whenever things change, they mourn the familiar. They don't mourn what's happening, even if they go to a better place. They always mourn the loss of the familiar. It's what really happened with Sarah in Sodom and Gomorrah. That's why she couldn't go forward, because she looked back and she basically turned into a pillar of salt because she couldn't go forward. And there's some discussion whether it was a literal pillar of salt or whether she just became salty and worthless in going forward because she mourned the familiar too much. And or if somebody dies, or if something happens, we go to the sadness of the loss of the familiar. And if things change out there, if our money system goes down, if all those things that we have counted on as that we count on in our daily lives. Okay, what happens if the power grid goes down? It's a real threat. Our country has never come back from a black start. And if that happens, I'm going to tell you what, it isn't going to be 2 days and the power is going to come back on. It's going to be months and potentially years. Well, does that mean that everything stops and it's time to do what happened with the crash of 29? Let's start jumping out of windows? No, that's not what we do. We look at it, figure out what the assets are, and it's a little bit important to start that now with your mentally preparing yourself. What happens if everything we know starts to devolve? Well, guess what? Politically, if it devolved, well, that's good. I've been praying it for years. I'd love to see God bring this thing right to its knees, because it needs to. And so we need to be prepared for that. But what do? You start out with asking, to your point, Karen, what do I do to build a strong community? What can I contribute? What skills do I have? What can I raise? What can I do to help my family, my friends, my community right here? It's not a big thing. It's not the whole state. It's not the whole world. Right here, what can we do today?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, in that I've been learning so much by trying to keep it, I call it the 10,000 foot view. But then you have, for example, General Flynn saying, make a global impact by starting locally. And you're both absolutely right. By keeping this higher view of everything, I've been able to not panic so much more. If you have faith and you're keeping an eye on everything just a little bit, like Karen the Riveter does, I'm not getting too focused on any one thing. So like when everything kind of went down yesterday, it was like, I wasn't worried at all. I was like, oh, darn, I lost Facebook. It might be slightly inconvenient about 11 o'clock at night when I want something else to do.
I'm kind of guessing that Ralph, the IT guy, had a bad day yesterday.
But I never post there. I just have a few friends I interact with a little bit, and, so a few groups that I'm in that I get involved with. But it's just not that important to me. Because it's not important to me overall, I can look at it from the 10,000 foot view. And like you were just saying, I think why it happened was this. And that's what I was doing for half the day at least. What happens after tells you some idea of why it happened. And if you believe, like me, that the good guys are in control, why did that happen? Why Truth Social went down, and I found that interesting. It did go down because I checked. So the only two things that were up.
Network didn't go down.
Yes. but as social media is the most of society, Twitter and Telegram. So the effect was a lot of people wanting to know what was happening joined up to one or both new applications, and that gives them access to information that would be censored on the other platforms.
Bill,
someone suggested it might have something
pretty quick.
Huh?
Bill,
Yeah, I do, but I'll touch on that point in a minute, Karen. While we just made a break, I thought it was hilarious. I worked all day yesterday, and very rarely am I on my phone during work unless I get a call or I check messages occasionally. But when I got home, I opened up social media just to check, see if anybody had sent me messages or anything. And some of the first things I see was this whole thing about, everybody panicked because social media went down. And I looked at my wife and I says, "Do you know anything about this?" And she looks at me and says, "No, it's the first I've heard of it." So yeah, you want to talk about somebody it doesn't affect in that regard? That's really me. I mean, go ahead and crash everything electronic. I've got a plot. I'm not a homesteader by any means, but I have homesteading abilities that's set up through other members of my family, right? My local connections. We almost have the little things covered now. So yeah, it's just one of those things. People that if you get so worked up about something so simple, maybe we ought to check and see what spirit we have inside of us, because we're not given a spirit of fear. We're given power, a sound mind, right? We understand things in part now, but the spirit is what reveals truth. It always brings things to our remembrance. So we should be able to connect dots when things happen, but in a panic mode, you almost become in a survival instinct without knowing how to survive, and that's a horrible place to put a person in, because they won't be able to process how to get out of it as long as you keep them in a panic state or in a fear state, right? That's fear is pre-panic. And that's what we see on a constant basis. And I can only speculate why those kind of things happen. And I really, I don't see a need to even try to guess my opinion in the matter without any facts. I really don't care. But those people who it affects on a regular basis, like Ralph, I mean, that I could see where that would be a huge hindrance. And it, you got to figure it out. Something has to be done about this.
How'd your day go yesterday, Ralph?
Yesterday was an absolute, complete, and total mess. But it was actually if it was for reasons other than all of the social media stuff going down. We had, there was other stuff going on, but yesterday was a mess.
Did you first hear about it from me on the social media part?
Yeah, I think I did on that, because I'm not on social media. If anything, I'm on anti-social media. But the problems kind of not only impacted social media, they impacted a lot of different things. They impacted Verizon's network. They impacted AT&T to a certain extent, if I remember right. I mean, and I
think T-Mobile.
Yeah, this was a major outage yesterday, and the thing that I think a lot of people outside of the IT community don't really realize is how incredibly fragile modern infrastructure truly is. Like the internet, I mean, if you want to see how actually frequently the internet breaks down, usually what ends up happening is it's related to a protocol called BGP, And then so if you want to look up how frequently it actually goes down, go look up the history of BGP related outages. They happen all the time. And that's the one that happened a few weeks ago that was strongly suspected to be a BGP issue on some of the core routers on the backbone of the internet. Even though nobody really admitted to that I've seen, it was strongly suspected by pretty much everybody in the IT community. And the one yesterday, there's a very good possibility of that as well. There are so many links and connections between things that they're not managed manually anymore. They're all automated, and all of that is so easy to break down. There's so much stuff that's built to be redundant that when just the wrong thing goes just the wrong way, sometimes that redundancy can actually end up being kind of a hindrance. And it'll be great in most cases, and redundancy is generally much better than just having a single point of failure. But on the same point, it also adds new points of failure. And a lot of times that's what we end up seeing. But it's easy to have internet outages, and anymore, everything is carried over the internet, or at least private networks. And a lot of those are carried over the internet backbones, even if they're not on the public internet. Including, private communications and like cell phone traffic, even landline traffic. A lot of times that anymore is packetized and transmitted over the internet. I mean, there's so much stuff that's dependent on the internet. And to your point too, Donna, the issue of black starting the grid is it's never truly been tested. And you see the regional outages that happen periodically of power, and those are just a small taste of things, because they're still not black starting the grid. They're still synchronizing the grid from outside the grid. And you look at how vulnerable the grid is to just attacks on just a handful of substations around the United States. If I remember right, I think the worst case scenario was that 9 substations around the United States, if they attacked particularly 9 critical transformers, it would take down the entire grid of the United States. Mm-hmm. And in a more optimistic case, I think it was 11 of them. And the United States doesn't even have the ability to manufacture those transformers anymore. We have them for the grid. We get them shipped in from Germany, I believe, generally.
Siemens was doing a lot of them, weren't they? And then also they've gotten a few sources over in Asia. Good luck with that.
Yeah, but we don't have the ability to manufacture them here in the United States anymore. We have lost the manufacturing facilities to do that. And even the ones overseas, they manufacture so few of them that they take forever to get them in. So what are you going to do? What can you do to be prepared? What can you do to be prepared to be able to help your community as well? I mean, take care of yourself, but also what can you do to be helpful in the event that all this stuff goes down?
Yeah, you better be good at building a group of people standing back to back, because you can't do it alone. And that's why villages work so well. And I'm not going to go to it takes a village to raise a child. Which was a weaponization of tearing families apart, right? But we need each other. And God talked about it in the Bible. We're a body. We're the body of Christ. We're not supposed to be the same. We're not supposed to all of us be the best at everything. We have people that are better than us at almost everything we do, right? There's always somebody who's better than us at whatever it is. And that's okay. It's not a competition. It should be working together.
Well, and that's something I have a huge degree of admiration for the Amish communities for, is their dedication to having the community itself be self-reliant, but then also the self-sufficiency of each individual farm. And that's one of their key core problems that they have with connecting up to the electrical grid, it's not that they're necessarily opposed to electricity itself. Many of them have means of generating electricity or pneumatic power for their own use, but they don't want to be dependent on an outside entity to be able to sustain.
Yeah.
And that's something I have to say that it makes a lot of sense to me. That the utter dependence on it is the problem. The use of it, I've great. Outside of the communities, go ahead and use it, but be prepared for. Don't be dependent on it. Don't become enslaved to that system. Make sure that you can survive without this stuff, because it's really fragile.
I'm going to tell everybody right now, I think it's a really smart idea to have a couple of cases of water on hand. I mean, there's all sorts of things that everybody should be doing, and not just for yourself. Think about people that, well, I'm going to get, I don't know, 10 bottles of water because I know that's all I need to make it through a day. Really? Well, what happens when your neighbor comes knocking? And because they weren't prepared, because you didn't say anything, you didn't warn the people around you. Whose fault's it going to be if they don't make it either? Because you were quiet. You didn't want to look like that crazy conspiracy theorist. So you didn't say anything. And then guess what? The people around you, they died because you didn't say anything. Whose fault is it? Because you didn't warn them, and you didn't tell them the things that were likely to happen. And you don't have to do it in a panic way. We're in no fear, but just say, you know what, I'm concerned, and get a few cans of soup in the house. Go ahead and get a few, the non-perishable stuff. Get some water in your house, because if the electrical
have a method of filtering water,
the life straws, whatever it is. But if we all prepare a little bit, we can make it, because we can help each other. But if everybody just sits back and goes, nah, this is stupid, it's just conspiracy theory, guess what? Seems like it's kind of a biblical situation, doesn't it? I mean, hasn't this been talked about many times? And it's happened many times before, and history repeats itself. It's going to happen again.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I see my crew's out walking behind me here, so I guess I gotta be the leader again today. So.
All right. Well, thanks, Bill. Thanks for coming on. I got to go too, because I'm out of here in a few minutes too. So we're going to have to move in. You want to say a prayer with us a minute? You want to pray today, Bill?
Sure. Father, we thank you again for this fellowship we're able to have, Father, via what we call the internet. And Father, there's so much about it that I even have yet to understand. And like I had said, we all know in part, Father, and someday we will know everything. But as far as now, we make the most of what we have, Father, the most of our time, the most of our finances, the most of our families, Father, everything that you've given us. And Father, I ask that you would you'd bring this as an encouragement to anyone that happens to be listening now, or maybe listening in the future, Father, that we need men of courage to stand up. We need your fighters, Father, people who are willing to command your statutes on this earth, Father, that the nations here may know peace and righteousness. Father, equip each one of us. Help us to understand and learn. And Father, continue to bring things to mind that need to be addressed throughout this week. Father, help us be a witness to all things. In your name, amen.
Just in pray, amen. Thank you. So tomorrow I'm going to be off tomorrow, but I'll be back on Friday, and I've got a anon friend of mine, Cognitive Carbon, that's coming on with me on Friday. So Ralph, I would love for you to join us, because this will be a fun one. So this is a guy, he's probably one of the smartest people I know, and there's a lot of smart people out here, but this guy's off the charts. Okay. And good person, and he's incredibly informative. And so we're going to be talking about things. He's been tracking the prices of fuel, as well as some other things to develop trends and such, so we can see what's going on, what's happened, and once we know what's happened, we can figure out how to fix it. With that said, go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because I am the best non-conceder who has ever not conceded in the history of the United States. And and not going to concede to liars, cheats, and thieves until we get this election and these usurpers out of office, take this nation back for we the people. And I'm going to go back and shovel horse manure again, because that's what I love doing. You know, I like putzing around. I'm old. Somebody's got to replace me. So that's what we're going to be doing. And with that said, I hope everybody has a great day. Remember, it's mental toughness. You know, there's no virtue signaling and being weak, a weak little pansy who lets people walk over you. There's no pride in that. There's nothing to be proud of, to just capitulate and to be weak around people and say, well, I didn't do anything. I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And so I'm just going to sit here quietly and such. Yeah. Yes. That's not going to come out well if things do crash and you're sitting there watching the people around you die because you didn't stamp up and say something and get uncomfortable. With that said, we're going to go have a great day. Starts with mental toughness. So God bless you. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day. It's a choice. Here, and here. And we'll talk to you Friday. I'm going to be doing on the ground some reporting tomorrow. So you go to my Telegram channel at Brandenburg, the number 4MI. You can see what I'm reporting on there tomorrow. Have a great day.